guys, welcome back to our channel. My name's Sydney and you're on the Connor and Sydney channel. It's been about 6 weeks since we had our baby boy. His name is Booker Dean and he's the sweetest, most snuggly little thing, and he's just sleepy all the time and we love him so much. We're so excited that he's here. It's our second baby and it's been hard to get a chance to sit down with a toddler and a newborn to tell my birth story, but I've got my notes here on my laptop. I'm gonna probably be looking down a lot, but I want to tell my birth story. I think it's a fun one. I think it's exciting. So we're gonna start that today. I had a birth center birth with my first child, with my daughter, and this time around we were able to have a home birth. Things were healthy and smooth and everything, so we were good to go on that. So on October 27th, we had our baby, and the night before I was just like having a lot of the same discomfort that I'd been having, but I hadn't lost my mucus plug or anything, so I was like, oh, like how much further away are we? Like I'm having discomfort and pressure down there that makes it feel like the baby's trying to get out, but I just really hope this happens soon. So we're late to bed, late riser type of people. So on October 27th at 8:30 in the morning, my daughter was crying up in her bed, and I went up to put her back to bed because, like I said, we're late risers, so it wasn't her wake up time yet. But yeah, I went up there and I was having so much pressure in my pelvic area and like pains, like sharp pains. And I was like, okay, like either something is really happening with labor, but it didn't feel like labor pains, or I have a UTI, because I'd been having some issues with my urine up in like the previous week. So I was taking like different like things, vitamins and supplements, whatever, so that I wouldn't get a UTI. But I was like, okay, I think that's actually what's going on right now, because that's just what it feels like. So I was pretty worried I didn't want to have a UTI going into labor. So I came downstairs, texted my midwife. Like I'd been up in my daughter's room, like on my hands and knees, like breathing through pain that didn't feel like contractions though. And I was like crying a little bit, and my daughter's like, Mama, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I eventually was able to like get in positions that were comfortable enough, got her back to bed, came downstairs, texted my midwife and said, hey, I think I might have a UTI. I'm not really sure. These are the symptoms I'm having. Like what should I do? And I went back to bed, woke back up at 10:30, and I was still having so much like sharp pain down there and just a lot of discomfort. And I was like, okay, maybe my water's trying to break. There's just like so much pressure. I don't know what's happening. So I like slowly stood up out of bed, and what do you know? There was a trickle of water, and I like ran to the bathroom, and there was water on the floor and on my underwear, and I was like, okay, so something is happening. And there was a lot of, if you don't like birth stories, don't be listening to this, but I'm gonna use details. So there was like, looked like my mucus plug was probably on my underwear. There was like a lot of stuff on it. So I was like, okay, maybe I just lost my mucus plug all at once, or maybe my water broke. I don't know, but it's a lot that came out down there. I called Connor in, told him what was going on, and we were like getting all excited. We're like, I think maybe I'm gonna start labor soon. So I called my midwife at 11 o'clock in the morning and told her what was happening. And she said, okay, put a pad on. Let me know in an hour what's going on. Let me know if there's a lot of water in your pad. Let me know if your contractions start. Just let me know what's going on in an hour. So we were all excited, and I hung up the phone and started like packing my daughter's bag in case she had to go to my parents' house that day during labor. And I had Connor start filling up the birth pool in our living room. We just kind of started preparing, and no water was coming out onto my pad, so I was really confused, but contractions did slowly start. It seemed like they were picking up pretty rapidly. Like they weren't necessarily super intense yet. It was just like the tightening of the belly. But I was like, wow, they're like 3 to 5 minutes apart. Like that's really weird, because it took like 3 days with my first baby for them to get that close together. I had contractions for several days, but they were like, took a really long time for them to get closer together. But this time they were just like right away, pretty close together from the jump. Around 12 o'clock, they'd been getting a lot more intense, and I called my midwife, let her know what was happening. I went and woke up my daughter, because I was like, okay, like might need to start getting her around, maybe take her to my parents. I'm not sure yet. Connor realized that he didn't have the right pump parts to pump up the pool. So he had to like start running to Ace Hardware, and he picked up a nozzle and brought it back home, and he's like, okay, we're good. Ace Hardware is only like 2 minutes away. So we were getting things prepared. 12 o'clock, I went and woke up my daughter. She was sleeping late, so I just let it happen today. Like, normally I wouldn't let her sleep until noon, but I like needed the time to prepare things, so I just let her keep sleeping. I had to keep getting on my hands and knees like a bunch to breathe through contractions when I was in her room, because things had gotten so much more intense already, and I couldn't really talk much during them anymore. Like, it had only been an hour, but they were like so intense already. So I was really like, I was trying to get her ready, trying to get her outfit on and everything, but like really breathing through things. And Connor couldn't really help me with anything because he was like setting up the pool, and I had to let him do that. And I knew that I had to let him do that. So it was just like a lot going on. It was like really chaotic. There was just a lot happening. But I was wondering why they were so intense, because I was like, if this is going to be like a 2-day thing, like they cannot be this, my contractions cannot be this intense already, because like, what am I going to do for the next like 2 days or even few hours if they just keep getting more intense? Like, this is already so strong. They're already so strong. And then Connor came up and said that the pool liner didn't fit the pool. And I was like, this has to be a joke, because I ordered it specifically for our pool size. Come to find out, he was using the shower curtain that was supposed to go on our bed. Like, you put a layer, you like make the bed, you put a shower curtain over it, and then you make the bed again, so that if you have the baby on the bed, you can take off the top layer, take off the shower curtain, and your bed is still made. You're ready to get back in it, like after you have the baby. So he eventually found out that that he did have a pool liner that did fit the pool. Everything did work out, but we just kept finding like bumps in the road that we weren't expecting. I called my mom and told her that I didn't think we were like super far into labor yet, but if she was able to come get Ricky, my daughter, then that might be a good idea, just so that I didn't have to be worrying about what was going on, or like because it was so hard already to get through contractions while I was getting her dressed, that I was like, I'm not sure if I want to be like getting her breakfast and things like that while I'm feeling like this. So I had her come pick my daughter up. So at 12:15, called the midwife, told her what was going on, since I talked to her the last time, and she didn't sound concerned or like anything was really happening yet. But I think it was because I was telling her my contractions are intense, but like they're not that bad, and I was still like on the phone talking to her. So I think she was like, oh, if you're talking through it, like we've got a little ways left, like don't get too worked up about it. But I was like, like kind of feels like there's a lot going on. My parents got here at about 12:30, picked my daughter up, and Connor kept getting the room more set up. He filled the pool up with water. Oh, I did forget to say, so he came home with the pump part to fill up the pool, and it wasn't even the right part. So we had to go back to Ace, get another part, and come back. So like I said, there was a lot going on, so he couldn't even really be helping me. But yeah, eventually he came back home the second time, had the right pump part, filled the pool up with air, and then he filled it up with water. And the liner was on, things were good. So at 1 o'clock, my daughter had already left. I cried when my parents took her, because I knew that she was so big, and she's gonna seem so much bigger. She's only 2, but I was like, oh, she's not gonna be my only baby anymore. And when she comes back the next time, like, we're gonna have 2 kids. When she comes back the next time, she's gonna seem so big compared to a newborn. So it was just really emotional. And she left, and around 1 o'clock, I tried laying down on the bed to get more comfortable, and it was not really any more comfortable. I had more contractions. I was like walking around the house just trying to get comfortable. Contractions standing against the table, contractions in the living room. If I call it the big room at any point, that's because it's the addition. We call it the big room, but it's technically our living room. I laid down on the couch then to try and find some relief. And I stayed here for a little while, not a super long time, but I laid on the couch for a little while having contractions, because I just like wanted to ease the pain and discomfort, and I didn't really know what else to do because they were so intense so early on. But laying down was like a really horrible position to be in when I had contractions, because it hurt my back so much. But it did space out the gaps in between the contractions, which isn't necessarily good because like you want to eventually have the baby. You don't want to like slow down the process. But I was like at a point where I was like, I kind of want to slow down the process because it just like felt like too much too soon and I like couldn't really handle it. So I was like, that's okay if the contractions space out, but I just felt like I couldn't relax into them. I took the pain-free birth course from Karen Welton, I believe, and I took it last time, took it again this time, and you're really supposed to like relax into your contractions, but they felt so intense so early on that I didn't feel like I fully had time to prepare myself. And I just felt like this time was like I was a little more out of control, and I just couldn't seem to relax into my contractions this time. I couldn't seem to like get control of what was going on. I just wanted to sleep. I already felt so exhausted. I remember so many times throughout thinking that if I were at the hospital right now, like as much as I'm not for epidurals personally, I would probably say yes to one right now because it was just so much so soon. And I just felt like I couldn't get a grip on them this time. It just wasn't as focused. I remember even thinking at one point, I was like, ooh, if I got transferred to the hospital today, like maybe I would get an epidural. And that's terrible because I didn't want to be transferred to the hospital. I wanted to have a home birth. I felt so out of control. I was like, if I had something to ease this discomfort a little bit and to get me through my contractions a little bit, like I would maybe accept it. At 1:46, I was laying on the couch and Connor finally called my midwife and he was like, hey, Sydney's having a pretty tough time and we're not sure how far into labor she is, but she is having a pretty tough time getting through her contractions. So she said, okay, I'll go ahead and head over. So this was at 1:46. I originally called her at 11 o'clock. So it had only been like 2.5, not quite 3 hours yet. I continued laying there, contractions spaced out a little while she was on her way to get to our house, and I was okay with that. I kept saying because they're spacing out, I don't know if it's going to be like a really long labor now. Like, I don't know. I don't want her to come over to our house and have to be here for 6 hours or 10 hours or whatever. Like, she's supposed to come over when we're close to having the baby. So I was like, maybe I should call her and tell her, go back home and just wait. I'll call you back. And Connor was like, no, just like have her come over. She'll see what's going on. We'll figure it out then. Like, it'll be okay. So at 2:15, my midwife got here. So it was about 30 minutes later. I'd just been like laying on the couch trying to rest. And she said, she walked in, she's like, oh my gosh, it looks like you guys almost have your own birth suite. Because we had the birth pool up and we just had candles everywhere. And we had spa music going. It was just like a really relaxing, peaceful environment in the big room. So at around 2:20, I would say, like shortly after she got there, she said, let's go ahead and check you and see where you're at. And I didn't want to be checked because I don't usually get checked much. I didn't really get checked much during my first labor either. But she was like, let's just see what's going on so we can kind of go from there. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. I was already at 7 centimeters, so I was like, okay. Like, thankfully, we're at least that far along. But with my first, when I was at 7 centimeters, we still had like, I don't know, 5-6 hours left. And I was like, oh man, I cannot do like 5 or 6 more hours of this. So yeah, that was at about 2:20. And she said there was a little bump on the baby's head that she could feel when she was checking me. And she said, I think it's probably just from being in the same position for too long. Like maybe you've been laying here a little bit and it's like making a bump on his head. So we need to get you in a different position. And she said, go sit down on the toilet, because they call that the dilation station. And maybe you'll be able to dilate a little bit more. Maybe you'll be able to have, maybe the bump will go away because like you'll be able to get in new positions. So around 2:25, I went to the bathroom to dilate on the toilet, and she said, go ahead and have 4 or 5 contractions while you're in there so that you can really let yourself just get further along. Maybe you'll dilate a little bit more. While I was in the bathroom, I was shaking uncontrollably. It's like where your body's going through a lot and it's kind of like in shock, kind of like just going through a lot. And I tend to do that in like situations where, like health situations where a lot is going on. And so I was shaking uncontrollably. Connor brought me a blanket while I was on the toilet, and I just like wrapped up in a blanket. And I was like holding myself up on the toilet seat too, because I was like just trying to get in comfortable positions. So I'm like holding myself up, had 4 or 5 contractions. They were really intense, really close together, and really difficult. And I was like, man, that was like, I don't know, only like 10 minutes that I was in there, and I had so many contractions. My midwife came in at the end of my last contraction when I was ready to go back into the big room and get in the pool. And she like held onto my arms and was like rocking me back and forth like this, and we were just like facing each other like that. And that was honestly my easiest contraction that I probably had that day, or like most helpful, because I really did need a lot more help than what I probably got this time around, because Connor had to be filling up the pool and everything. And so I didn't have as much help as what I did during my first labor. But like from that point forward, the pool was filled and everything, and he was able to push on my lower back for all the rest of the contractions. And although they were so intense and so hard to get through, he helped so much. Like the pushing helped so much, or it like eases it so much. Doesn't make it easy, doesn't make it comfortable, but it helps a lot. Around 2:35ish, I got in the birth pool. She had only been there for like 20 minutes. The pool this time, it was so much different than my first birth, where I was at a birth center in like a jacuzzi pool, like a hardened pool. That one was not comfortable. Everything was just like not great about the tub experience. But this time, the water like felt so good. I finally felt like I could relax. Like I sat in there and I was able to like put my arms over the side and like labor on my hands and knees, and like I could almost fall asleep. The warm water was covering my belly. It eased a lot of the discomfort, at least in between contractions. Like the bottom of the pool is blown up too, so it's like cushiony on my knees, so I could like even lay back in the pool and just like relax, put my head back. Like I was just finally able to get in comfortable positions in between the contractions, and it just actually felt so much like it was so much pain relief this time. It was actually what people say, like water birth can be like a form of epidural, and it really did feel like that this time. But I felt, again, like the water was making my contractions space out because I was getting more comfortable. And so I was like, oh no, like I'm probably not progressing again. So around 2:55ish, the midwife said, hey, like because I have GBS, we probably want to go ahead and get me the antibiotics that I was gonna use. I'd been debating whether or not to use the antibiotics this time around. We said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that now. And she didn't have the antibiotics with her, so she was like, I gotta run to the birth center and grab them really quick. The birth center is like a 3-minute drive, so she was like, I'll be there and back super quick. I'll be gone a couple minutes. Let me know if anything happens. And we kind of laughed because like obviously if you're back in like 5 minutes, nothing's gonna happen. And she's like, yeah, nothing's gonna happen, but like I said, just call me if you need anything. Be right back. So she left, and I was sitting on my butt, like feeling so comfortable in the tub, and all of a sudden I had a really big contraction. Connor helped flip me over because I was this way, and contractions are not comfortable when you're like laying on your back. This was 2:55. Connor helped flip me over and push on my back because this position was like a lot easier for me to have contractions in. But there was like no relief during the contraction. It was so big, it was so intense. It was such a wild feeling. And I wanted to rest again, but I was scared I was gonna have another strong contraction. So I like sat back again, tried to relax, and it only worked for a minute or so, and then I had a contraction again. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I gotta flip back over. So Connor helped flip me over and push on my back, and it felt about as intense as I could imagine a contraction getting. So I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna be able to do this for hours. Like I must be getting really close. But like she just checked me a couple, like 20 minutes ago, whatever, and I was at a 7. So I was like, hopefully I'm just like dilating really fast is what I was thinking. I wasn't able to even get into what people call labor land. Like my head never went into like, oh, I'm like not talking and I'm just like in the zone now. And like I was never able to get there because it just felt like so much happened so fast that I just wasn't able to get into that frame of mind. So I just had like this really intense, crazy feeling, wild contraction. I don't even remember Connor pushing on my back in that one because there was just so much going on. Like, I asked him even after we had the baby, I was like, where were you during that contraction? He's like, I was pushing on your back. And I'm like, I don't remember you being in the room or anything. Like, it was just so much. So I told him after that one, I said, I think the baby's coming soon. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, I really think so. Like, that just felt like it was way too crazy. Like, I think the baby wants out. Like, it just felt like I knew that that had to be the last contraction. I just knew. After that, I had another contraction like a couple minutes after, maybe like a minute or two after. And I just, like I said, I wasn't in labor land. I was like so aware of what was happening. It just felt like my labor had just started. So I wasn't like in the zone. I hadn't like gotten into my calm, like close my eyes, like breathe through it, relax, listen to the spa music, look at the candles. Like, I wasn't able to ever get there because it just happened so fast. And so the next contraction, it's just me and Connor there because, like I said, the midwife had to leave for 5 minutes. And the next contraction, I was like narrating what was happening. It was so funny. I was like yelling. I was like, okay, yep, I'm pushing. Yep, the baby's coming. I reached down to check and I go, yep, I feel the head. That's the head. Oh, there's the ring of fire. I'm like telling him exactly what's happening. And in my head, I'm just thinking like, I can't believe like I'm pushing right now. Like, you get this feeling when your baby's coming out where you can't help but push. And that's where I was at. So I was like, oh, like I'm gonna push, and you can't really hold back. So I started bearing down and I pushed as hard as I could. And I knew in my head, I was like, the harder I push right now in this moment, since I can feel the head, the harder I push, the quicker this feeling is over. And so I was like, I wasn't like quiet really. I was like groaning because you do these like, oh, ah. And I was doing that, but it was like very loudly like mooing and oohing, and this like sounds that you make to help you through contractions were very loud and intense. And I knew that the baby was coming out. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, why did this happen out of nowhere? At 3:02, the midwife walked in the door. She looked at Connor, and Connor goes, the head's halfway out. And she said she thought he was kidding, but she looked in his eyes and she's like, he's not kidding. Like, she could tell that he was like, help. And so she threw all of her bags on the floor, ran over. She was like, I didn't even have time to put on gloves or do anything. Like, your baby was coming out. So obviously, as you know, I wasn't able to get the antibiotics that I thought I was. There were supposed to be birth assistants coming over to our house to help with everything. They obviously weren't able to come over because, like I said, the things just happened so fast. She wasn't able to call them or anything. So it was just the three of us. So I thought that I was going to be pushing for a while because I pushed for 2.5 hours with my first child. So I was like, oh man, like I really don't want to push for that long this time. So I thought the head, like since I could feel it, I thought when the contraction stopped, the head would go back in a little bit and I'd get to breathe and like work up to the next contraction. And that's not what happened. The head never went back in. It was halfway out. It was there. And like, I knew that it was stuck there unless I pushed it out. So this time I actually like ran toward the pain. Like, I leaned into the discomfort and was like, we just got to push and push and push until the baby's head comes out, because I didn't want to be pushing for 2.5 hours this time. So I was on my hands and knees leaning over the tub when this happened. And the midwife came in and she's like, lean back. And like Connor and her helped me back so that I would like be more straight upward. And she said that this was because, one, she didn't want me to be out of the water and have the baby like breathe air and then go into the water, because that's not safe for babies. So she wanted him to be born into the water because the water wasn't quite as high as it should have been, I guess. But she also wanted to make sure that she could see what was going on, and she couldn't see what was going on with the position I was in. So they like pulled me back, and I just kept like roaring and pushing, and basically the baby's head just popped right out. I felt the biggest, most amazing, relieving feeling. The baby just shot out. This was at 3:03. The baby was born, and which is insane, because she left at like 2:55-ish, to go get the antibiotics, and at 3:03 my baby was born. So she almost missed it, and we don't fault her for that. We didn't care at all. Like, I didn't even think about the fact that she wasn't in there. I just thought about my baby's head is coming out and it's intense and I need to push to get this over with instead of just like waiting for her to come. So yeah, we were all like cracking up. We're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. Like, Connor was laughing so much. We're all like, oh my goodness, like what just happened? And it just was the most fun, cool, amazing birth. I don't even know how to explain it. I just was so happy afterwards. Like, it was such a relieving feeling. I remember in the past hearing people say that pushing was a relief from the contractions, and I thought that's insane because I pushed for 2.5 hours with my first and it didn't feel good. But this time that's exactly what happened. The pushing, I felt like I had control over. I felt like I felt powerful. I felt like I had purpose, like push and you can get the baby out, like this is what you're doing. But during the contractions, they were so wild and intense and close together so early on that I felt like I just had no control. So this time, pushing was a relief from the contractions, which is just so odd and so unexpected for me. But then like the baby was laying on my chest and I'm laying in this comfy pool that's so cozy, and it was honestly like the greatest feeling in my life. And so she told Connor to run over and get some blankets, and we covered the baby in warm blankets. And he was having a little bit of trouble breathing. She's like, like he's not breathing completely right yet. So she grabbed her oxygen and gave him some extra oxygen. But I'd been saying like, I love you so much, baby. Oh, you're my son. You're so sweet. Like, I was just in heaven. And even when she put the oxygen on him, I, for some reason, like, of course, I was like praying out loud, like, God, help my baby to be okay. Help him to breathe right. Like, just be with him right now. Help my baby. But even while doing that, I had such a confidence and a peace knowing like, this is my baby. He is here. He is healthy. Like, I knew he was okay. For some reason, I was just so confident. Like, I know he's okay. Like, God help him to be okay. But I know you've created him healthy and he is here and he's healthy. I felt so good about it. I was like talking to him and I was so excited. I was just absolutely head over heels in love with him the second he was on my chest. And I had a harder connection with my daughter, I think because labor was so hard. I think because I'd never had a kid before. I didn't really understand. I was like, that's a baby, like, whoa. But then this time around, instead of being like, whoa, a baby, I was more like, you're my son, you're so sweet, I love you so much. Like, I felt more connected to my daughter in the womb than I did this time because I was so busy with my toddler. But this time I felt so much more quickly connected after the birth. So it was just, everything was very different this time around. And when I pulled him up to my chest, my midwife was like, whoa, be careful, his cord is really short. And it's the same thing with my daughter. I must just have like really short umbilical cords. So I kept him right here, but I couldn't like pull him up at all. She told us later on that when she got there, she unwrapped the cord from his neck and then he slid right out. So looking back now, I'm really glad she was there to be able to unwrap the cord from his neck because I didn't know that was happening. But she did tell us, she's like, you would have figured it out. Like, as soon as he wasn't coming out, you would have looked down, or Connor would have looked down and you would have seen the cord and unwrapped it. Like, it's okay, and it would have been okay. But she did speed up that process by pulling the cord over very quickly, and then he like flew out. So that's a big relief that she was able to help us in that way. And she only did the oxygen for maybe a minute, and she's like, he's great, he's breathing awesome, like things are wonderful. She kept saying his face was going to be pretty bruised up from smashing into my pelvis so hard and so fast to get out. And it was. For the first day, his face was pretty bruised up. But this time around, everything just felt so clear the whole time. Like during labor, everything was so vivid. Afterwards, everything was so vivid. I think because the labor was so short this time, nothing was traumatic. Like everything seemed like quick and fast and easy and awesome. I don't know. Nothing was traumatic about it. So like they delivered the placenta like 15 minutes after. I wasn't lightheaded this time. Like everything was just, it felt so like seamless. I don't know. So they got me out of the pool. I didn't even want to get out of the pool because I was so cozy in there. but they're like, we got to get you out. We got to check and make sure that things are good down there. We got to get the baby warm and out of the water. So we got out, and I thought because of how fast the baby shot out, I was like, maybe I tore this time. I didn't the first time, but I was like, maybe I tore this time. And they said this time, absolutely no tears, nothing, like things are great. There's no injury down there at all. And I was like, no way. Like, again, so seamless, so wonderful. It was just a huge blessing. So even later when I had to go pee before the midwife left, I was like bracing myself for how bad it was gonna hurt, but there was no stinging or anything because there was no injury. So there were just like so many answered prayers this time. I prayed to not tear. I prayed for quick pushing. I prayed for the fetal ejection reflex, which is where the baby just shoots out on its own and you don't even have to like work hard to get the baby out. It shoots out basically on its own, and that's pretty much what happened this time. And it was a quick labor. Like I said, it started at 11. I had him at 3. I had prayed that my labor would be so easy and good and healthy that I wouldn't even know I was in labor until I was far along. And that's pretty much what happened, because I kept like thinking, this isn't really labor yet. And by the time the midwife got there, and I was like, okay, I think I'm definitely in labor now. By the time she checked me, I was already at 7 centimeters. So like, I feel like I skipped the whole first half of the labor because it was pretty healthy and like pretty good and more comfortable than I could have expected. So then it was just amazing. After that, they helped me into bed. They like got me a shirt. They got like me into my diaper. They got the baby into bed, cozy. We were just in this room, like cuddled up as a family, and like, I don't know, it was just so special. We didn't have to get packed up, or like I didn't have to work up the courage to walk to my car or anything. Like, we were just home. Things were cozy. Like, I have the best memories and the best experience with home birth, that even though during birth, like my thoughts were so clear during labor and during those last contractions, I remember thinking, as much as I wanted more kids, I don't know if I could ever do this again because of these intense, wild contractions. And the feeling I had when the baby came out was so amazing. Like the pushing feeling, the way that it felt when the baby came out of my body. I remember even thinking like that night, I'm like, I can't wait to experience that again. Like, I felt so powerful. I felt like it was just such a beautiful feeling. I don't know. It's just, I didn't feel scared to do it again after what I experienced this time. And that felt really relieving. I did all his checkups while we laid in the bed. He was 7 pounds and 3 ounces. He was 21 1/4 inches long. All of his checkups went great. My midwife left probably around 5 after she'd done all the checkups and hung out with us for a little bit. She was already gone out of our house by 5 o'clock, which is insane because I thought she was going to be there for like 6 hours before the baby was even born. And I felt bad for how long she was going to be at our house. And then she was only there from like, 2:15 to 5. So it was like really quick. And I also didn't realize that with your second baby, you have contractions while you're breastfeeding. Some people have that with their first also. I didn't, but with my second, the contractions during breastfeeding for the first 2 days felt like the contractions when I was about to have my baby. Like, I was shaking and I had to like roll around and get in comfortable positions, and it was just so weird. I did not know I was gonna have like the afterbirth contractions so strong. Nothing you can't get through, but it was intense, and I did not see that one coming. And Connor kept going, is this normal? Is this okay? And he's like, can you look it up? Like, see if this is normal. He like thought I was having like, I don't know, something wrong that I needed to go to the hospital for, but I was like, my midwife said this is supposed to happen. So I like looked everything up and I was like, yeah, that is normal, but it was super intense. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. After that, just recovery was way better. My mental state was way better. Everything was way better. And I think a lot of that was because we slept so well this time. My baby slept really well. And I slept with him in the bed with me. I know everybody has mixed feelings on that, but we tried to not co-sleep with our daughter. And 4 months in, it was just like, we have to sleep. We're all losing our minds. So we learned how to safely co-sleep. And then we started sleeping great with my daughter. So this time around, we said, day 1, we're going to sleep. and I brought him into the bed with me. He sleeps great, I sleep great, everybody gets good sleep, and we just seem so mentally more stable, emotionally more stable. Just, it's been a really blessing of an experience this time. Like, everything about it has been such a huge answered prayer. From me being pregnant with him after a miscarriage to the birth and to my mental state after birth, everything has been an answered prayer, and we're just so grateful for him. I'm so grateful for our quick, amazing birth that our midwife almost wasn't here for, or the 7 minutes she was gone, that she almost missed it in 7 minutes. Like, things just happened so fast. It was so cool. I could talk about it all day and all night. I just loved our experience this time. It was really fun having a home birth, and I encourage it to anyone who's able to and anyone who wants to. I totally encourage it. It's amazing. But yeah, that was our experience this time around. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'm just so excited that our baby's here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That was our birth story. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys again soon.